Chapter 13 talks about many new things that is occurring within the Florida Shuffle, and it also talks about the things that occur and are reoccurring from, for example, like past chapters that we have talked about. It begins with talking about how like things are still being exposed within the Florida Shuffle. For example, they talk about how things aren't getting better when it comes to the drug addiction industry. And the reason for that is because I feel like Florida doesn't want it to get better. I feel like it's something that brings in a lot of money, which is why it's hard for them to like cancel it out exactly. This chapter also talks about how like people are very vulnerable, especially like dealing with addiction, which is very important because it shows how easy it is for them to like be redirected and for them to, you know, be tricked into starting things over instead of recovering and doing better. And it also talks about how like resources are very limited, and the reason for that is because people don't want them to get better because it helps when it, for example, when it comes to like them making money and everything, especially like the recruiters or the bookers as they talked about them in the book, well, as they call them in the book. It also mentions them and how they play like a major role when it comes to giving these patients who are facing addictions like promises and things like free housings. They also offered them things like cash incentives, and that's a very important one to think about because if they're offering cash incentives and these people are already addicted to different things, like that's gonna make them want to get the cash so they can go get they want what they want for their addiction, which is very backwards because their reasoning for getting help and seeking help is to get that help, not to be redirected in the wrong direction. Something else these people offer them is access to treatment, which is also very important because at the end of the day, when you think about it, like they're just tricking them instead of actually giving them the help that they need. And the reasoning for that is for those facilities and everything to gain more financially, which is very sad because they're using them. And something very important they talked about is the insurance policies, especially the ones that are covering the addiction treatment. They talked about how they're manipulated for profit, meaning that they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Like they're just doing what they want for money, basically. So, what this looks like is patients being subjected to unnecessary, testing or treatment services. So, these facilities can bill the insurance companies at these high rates and get more money rather than, helping them and focusing on what they need. So, basically, their plan is to keep patients like going backtracking and to keep them relapsing and going back to that addiction, which is very sad. um the Florida Shuffle is known to like benefit the providers more than the patients, which is very sad also because it's like why should they seek this treatment if they're not really getting help? And something else that was very important that was mentioned in this chapter is like trust in the healthcare system. Trust in the healthcare system is not good at all. I don't believe it ever has been. And things like this show like why it's not, which is very unfortunate because it does things like leaving families frustrated and heartbroken because people fail to give them the help that they need to help their loved ones. Thank you for watching.